All right, I've pushed the record button. We're meeting with Norah Diedrich. Nora is the director of the Evanston Art Center. Good evening, Nora.
How are you all?
I think we're good. You're breaking up a little bit. I hope it's okay.
Who's with us?
I'm sorry, say it again.
Who is with us?
There are 50 artists in this room, roughly. Most of them are in the United States. One's in Norway, one's in Australia. Pretty much they're between 30 and my age. They're in all different stages of their career. How long have you been at the Evanston Art Center?
2009, in the summer of 2009.
I
started there as the director.
Hey, Nora, let me interrupt a moment. Is there anything we can do to get your connection better?
Go ahead.
Can you plug into a landline instead of being wireless? Can you get closer to your router or something?
You know what? I've got a clear network, and this is probably about as good as I can do it.
Okay,
it's just the service I have.
All right, let's go with it. Yeah, somebody said so the ages are from 30 to 35. That's pretty funny. Where did you grow up?
Chicago.
How did you end up being multilingual?
Studied French, have French ancestors, and love the language, love the culture, love to travel.
Okay.
Love their museums, so I just pursued that.
When were you, you've made art. Do you still make art? Can you hear me now?
You know, I want to go back to making art. I got into art when I was probably 9 or 10. Yeah, yes.
Okay.
9 or 10 years old because I love drawing. And so I was fortunate enough to take classes down at the Art Institute of Chicago when I was very young. And that initial engagement is what allowed me to pursue art, I think, for the rest of my life. So did a lot of work in photography, and right now there's just no time to make art, so I miss it.
Somebody suggested, can you turn your camera off and that might make the sound better, or can you cover the camera with, like a Post-it note? And to see if that makes the sound better for others? I mean, we all think you're beautiful, but we've seen you, so look at that. Now you looks like, yeah, all right, let's see if that does any good.
So what do you think?
Too early to tell, but that sounded better for a moment.
Good.
Do you still make art?
Yeah, I have not had an opportunity to make art because the job is so demanding right now. There are just too many hours and too many other commitments. So I have not been able to.
The person who tells me we need to black out the camera, not just cover it with a color. Like a piece of tape. Maybe. I don't know if
I've lost you.
You've lost me. Yeah, that's another idea. Let me pause this record. I can't pause the recording, can I? No, I can just stop it. Maybe if you phoned in, you want to try that?
Yeah, I could try to phone in on my cell.
Why don't you do that? I'll give you the phone number, 415.
Hang on, I have to write it down.
Okay.
Give me 1 minute.
Okay. This isn't a problem I've had previously. You know, I got a message that says her bandwidth is low, and I can see a bunch of red bars signifying low. Yeah, there's a thunderstorm here, but I don't think that's it. I think, as Nora said it, it's typically low.
All right, what?
415.
What's your number?
415, area code 415. 762 9988. You getting that?
I'll call. Yeah, I'll call you.
Wait.
I'll call you.
Wait.
What? What?
You also need the meeting number.
Okay.
632 376 973.
Okay, let me try that.
And leave this camera on because it's not going to matter. I can mute the sound here and you call in. Just leave the camera on and phone in, okay?
Let me get my phone.
Okay. Does anybody want to ask a question while we stall for a moment? Question was, is there an average number of artists for a gallery? I think the normal number of artists is 25. Some artists, some galleries we've met with, like Franklin Parish, is down to like 12 or so. And some galleries have maybe as many as 50 artists, which seems like nobody gets enough exposure or coverage. 25 plus or minus 2 seems to be fairly normal. Decisions on framing are interesting. Frequently, the artist frames them themselves, and when a work of art sells, that the cost of the framing is deducted from the selling price, and then that gets reimbursed to the person that paid the framing, and then the balance is split 50-50. Sometimes, you know, good galleries or more high-end galleries take care of all those expenses for the artist, and they get reimbursed. Nora, are you here on the phone?
Hey, Paul.
Hi, yes?
I need your participant ID.
That's the one I gave you.
They asked for another ID. All right, let me try again.
This question is about whether it's appropriate for the artist to have a say in the framing. Yes, totally. You know, but sometimes the gallery, you know, the gallery sometimes balance between the cost of framing and trying to keep it cheap and what the hell are they going to do with the frames afterwards because they own them, but they might be returning the art to the artist. You know, it's an area that's definitely open up for discussion. It's something that should be talked about. Also, these days, you can exhibit art with these little teeny magnet thumbtacks that go into the wall and then these high-powered magnets in front of that so that you don't have to frame the art. That looks pretty decent frequently.
You there?
Yes, how are you? Are you on the phone now?
Huh?
Yes, are you connected by the phone?
Yes.
All right, fabulous. Let me mute you over here. All right, oops. All right, say something, Nora. I think I got you muted that way too. I think I'm hearing you through I don't know what I'm hearing. We'll try and work this out. I'm unmuting you there. What is the main role? What's your main role as a at the Evanston Art Center? This is essentially a community facility. That what's the source of your funding?
We have a variety of funding sources. It's government. We have also individual giving.
Okay.
And we have to raise money by our tuition.
By what? Well, you must.
Our tuition. We have classes.
Okay, go ahead. There we go. I found you. All right, hold on. Let me tell this one. Why is that happening? Nora. Oh, damn, man. Nora, I think the problem is you're getting sound from the computer that's then playing into your phone. Can you turn the sound off? Maybe you should just go into another room. What do you think?
Yeah, that's fine.
Wait a minute. All right. So you're over there. Now let me see if I can go back over to this thing and unmute this. All right. Nora, are you there?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, that's much better. Finally. All right. Sorry, everybody, for all that stuff. Okay. So funding comes from a variety of sources. When you say government, that's federal government, city government, what?
Yeah, it's mostly the state.
Mostly the state.
Some federal money, and we also have over 6,000 classes a year, so we raise money, earned income, through tuitions.
Okay.
And we have individual giving.
Is your job to raise these funds and, you know, make sure it all happens smoothly? Is that part of your job?
Yeah, I mean, I basically run the place, so I have to oversee everyone and everything.
Okay, but do you have someone who does fundraising, or do you do fundraising, or you both do, and it's kind of, how does it work?
Yeah, I think any executive director's job is a fundraising job.
Okay. And
we have a development director, but we have to work together.
that makes sense. How many exhibits does the Evanston Art Center do on an annual basis?
We do between 5 and 6 exhibitions. Some are solo, some are group shows. They're up for about 6 to 7 weeks. And we work very hard, as you know, Paul, to get publicity.
Indeed. Most of the shows are artists from what distance range?
We've had international artist show. A lot of the artists in Chicago and the Chicagoland region are absolutely on the top of the list. It's a fabulous place and market because of the universities and the number of people in town. But it's really regional, local, and occasionally internationally.
But it's mostly regional and local, isn't it?
Yeah, I would say maybe 75%.
How do shows come to being? Where does the idea for an exhibit come from?
Traditionally, we've had an exhibition committee, and it's made up of curators, collectors, artists, and the like. But the committee format is really not working right now for us. And I want to go back to a curatorial system where we invite curators, or if we're lucky, we can hire a curator. So it's a single vision.
Interesting. Interesting. So do you get proposals for exhibits that people respond to and get excited about ever?
Yes, we accept proposals and submissions. We probably get 30 to 40 every 3 months or so.
Okay.
And we look at everything we get, although we do not have the staff to respond. But I would advise anybody who is trying to show work not to discount the community art centers. There's some fabulous work shown.
Do you ever travel exhibits to other community art centers?
No, we don't. We don't have the funding.
And the assumption, are you comparable? I mean, is there an association of community art centers? Do you check in with what others are doing?
You know, there's a national guild of community arts educators. A lot of it is music-based rather than visual. But I actually would love to start something locally because there are a couple of art centers that are absolutely fantastic.
Do you participate in curatorial decisions?
Excuse me, say that again?
You participate in curatorial decisions?
Yeah, everyone. I participate in the lighting, the installation, the promotion. I'm totally hands-on.
How on a weekly basis, how is your time? What are the different tasks you do?
Oh, Lord.
I'm interested in
Well,
percentages, you know. I mean, like, I spend a lot of time looking at art. I spend this much time raising money, you know, like that.
well, sadly, I have to say that most of it, and I would say probably a good 50%, is administration and raising money. And the fun stuff, the partnerships and looking at work, studio visits, and networking, which is what the world is about, is sliced up in the other 50%.
Okay. Do you have veto power about exhibitions? Is that something you ever exercise?
Yes, and I have, and I think the trouble I've seen is where we get a curator who is on the exhibition committee, and they jury in their friends, and that's not what we're about. I also like to see artists who have somehow placed themselves in the contemporary art world. I think they need to know why they're doing their work and how it fits in with the rest of what's going on. We do show emerging artists. We show student work, high school children as well. It's a wide open program.
It's interesting. I don't know what to do here. I've got people asking good questions, and I don't know whether I should ask them for them or keep going on my train of thought. I think I'm going to keep going for a moment, and then I think I'll open it up for questions. Earlier, is there a relation? Go ahead. We
sell work. I think that the artists should know that community art centers do actively sell work. We take 30%, which is a lot better than a gallery, although we don't do the work a gallery does. And we've sold a lot of work.
How do you make it known that the work is for sale?
Absolutely. Well, we do on our website. We do with the gallery information. And we invite collectors in.
Is there a readily available price list, or does it say the price on wall text labels?
We've been doing gallery sheets. Everything is priced.
Okay. I think I'm going to open this up for questions, and I'm going to go with Ann first. Ann, let me unmute you. Go ahead, Ann.
Hi there. I'd like to understand how art centers fit in the whole art world. Like, are you in between a museum and a gallery, or are you your own thing, or how do you see your role?
Yeah, I would say that we are in between the two that you mentioned. I think that's a very astute observation. We sell work, but we are not a gallery. We're a Kunsthalle, so we're not a collecting institution. But we support artists by hiring them to teach, and we sell their work in the galleries. And we have a very large community engagement initiative. So our role is to reach out into the community, bring people in who are perhaps uninitiated, and make sure that they understand what the contemporary art world is all about. Now, that's not different from museums or galleries, but we have a more community-based background and future, really.
Thank you.
Great, thanks.
Go ahead, Nora.
Well, that being said, I have to mention that we have shown artists such as Mata, Ruth Duckworth, Nick Cave, Audrey Niffenegger, Carrie James Marshall has taught in our school. So we have, probably by virtue of where we're located, been involved with some very high-level practicing artists.
Yes, you have. you know, one of the things I particularly like about the Evanston Art Center is that they do a biennial and they do a sale, and there are artists' works that show up in these things that are friends of mine that I go there to support or see what their new things are like. And I frequently end up discovering a number of artists that I had never heard of before because I went there to see somebody else. So there's a fair amount of spillover, or I think fallout, you know, that brings that into play. Kim, you had a couple of questions. I think we can go with as many as you have. Go ahead, Kim. You're unmuted.
Oh, thank you. I don't know, not sure I had one specifically for her, but let me think of something here really.
Well, you had two that you can paraphrase. One was about shipping and another disappeared.
Yeah, good. Reminded me. Yes. Does the center pay for shipping for proposals that are accepted?
On occasion, we will pay for shipping. Traditionally, we do not. But we do fundraise for certain exhibitions that we think are worth bringing in.
Okay.
All right, and then you had a question about, where did it go?
Where's my other one?
I don't know if I find it. Oh, here we go. Nope, that was different. All right, thank you. Sandy, you had a question. Let me unmute you, Sandy. Hold on a sec. Okay, Sandy, go ahead.
Oh, you talking to me?
Sandy, yes.
Yeah, I wanted to know why their exhibition committee wasn't functioning. I think she kind of answered that later about.
I think so too, but let's be sure.
I think that the whole center right now is in a transformative phase. Mm-hmm. Not only are we moving from our building, which has been a city-owned building, we've been renting from the city of Evanston for over 40 years. But I think some of our practices are outmoded, not fresh, and need a little bit of rethinking. And the exhibition committee, I think, is one of them. I think it's better to engage a curator and have them propose something and go that route. Everything gets stale occasionally.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Alyssa, hold on. I'm going to remind me how to pronounce your name. Alyssa, am I saying it correctly?
Lisa.
All right. I'll do better next time, I hope. Go ahead. What's your question? What were you asking?
Well, I was wondering if you have a certain aesthetic you're looking for in the art. I know you do a lot of wide range of ages and levels of skill, but is there sort of an educational piece or different mediums that you're looking for?
Right, good question. I think everything should be educational, whether it's in a gallery or a museum. I think that to complete a piece of work, the audience is part of that engagement. And I think we show all medium, it's contemporary, quote unquote, and all ages and backgrounds, cultural differences. We're not looking for one particular aesthetic, but we are looking for artists who are at a certain level and know why they're making their pieces.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Anne, you had a question. Let me unmute you. Where are you? Here you are. Go ahead, Anne. Anne Stoddard.
Oh, sorry.
No worries.
Does the center have a collection?
No, we do not collect.
But you do have some art around. Do things get left over sometimes, or what?
You know, we do have some art that we've been given and we care for, but we do not have a permanent collection. I don't really see us going in that direction.
No, I think you would have to be, it'd be a lot, you'd have to spend money, you would have to store it, I think it detracts from the basic mission of the Evanston Art, of a community art center. I don't know of any, well, I don't know. You know, to some extent, I compare you to the Elmhurst Art Museum and the Hyde Park Art Center. And the Elmhurst Art
Right,
Museum,
I don't.
they have a collection. The Hyde Park Art
Yeah.
Center doesn't.
Right.
I don't know. I think it's too hard to have enough in a collection to have it make much sense.
Well, it frees us up to continue to show new work, emerging artists, and we're not beholden to the trustees who may have given us the work where we have to show their piece at certain points during the year.
All right, if you guys have more questions, send them, type them or something. As you think about moving to a new space, how do you define what you're looking for? Are you looking for something that has windows that don't leak?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I know. Are you looking for something that is a cleaner white box as opposed to something that used to be a residence?
We're in a house that was built in 1929, and I think it's ideal for an artist residence. But right now, I do not see it as speaking to contemporary art world. My idea is a open space, mid-century modern, a space that has street traffic and some energy to it. So we have found a space. We're hoping to buy it. And if we do that, we'll evolve something that is 85 years old into something that's more relevant.
I mean, I've seen this happen before with, the Hyde Park Art Center, for an example, went from, a space that was pretty much under a staircase to a really cutting edge facility. There's, one can redefine themselves.
Yeah, and that's what we need, because to stay there in a 1929 home makes rebranding real difficult.
Yeah, that's certainly true. Okay, and I want to go back to Angie. Angie, you are unmuted. Go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, thanks for being here. What are some of the most successful ways that you bring people to the center? Like what PR approaches or what events have proven most successful for you?
Our public programs are the most successful. We do have lectures, we have tours, we have, now that we've opened it up to cross-disciplinary work, we now have performances, music. We had a weekend devoted to hip-hop, so we had graffiti artists and DJs and a lot going on all weekend. That brings new people in who don't know who we are, don't know what we do, and find it really, really engaging. So it's a combination of the exhibitions, but mostly the new public programming. We get a lot of new people in the door. We have an artist in residence program that we've just started. The first artist was visual artist, and the second is a musician, actually a soprano, who paints.
What's the artist in residence program? You're not providing living space, or are you?
They have studio space, not living space.
And where are they coming from? Are they from the community and they choose to work there because there's public engagement? Is that what's attractive?
Exactly. Artists who do not have a dedicated studio space, they need the engagement, they need the space, they need a time to get out and be in a new spot to work.
But you wouldn't think about bringing somebody in from Omaha?
Someday I hope we can.
Okay, cool. Chris, your turn. Let me unmute you. Hold on one second. Go ahead, Chris. Oops, you unmuted yourself, and then I unmuted. All right, go ahead, Chris. Nope, you're muted. Unmute.
Unmuted again?
Oh, you're
okay.
good. There you go. All right.
Okay. What about artists who aren't in the community? Like, because I live in Minnesota, and I've had a couple of shows at some art centers, but I'd like to branch out a little of where I am. So, are you really committed to just people in your area, or are you looking at artists from, other parts of the state or possibly the country?
Well, we do show artists from all over the country. We have a biennial show now, and we've had a couple of artists have to drive about 5 hours to get to us from the very southern tip of Illinois.
How do you find these people, or how do they find, how do you find each other when they're so far away?
Well, the biennial is a submission process.
So Chris in Minneapolis could send a submission for your biennial. He just has to know that it's happening.
Well, our biennial, unfortunately, is Illinois only.
You could lie.
And,
no, okay, fine.
We had a few who tried. We caught them.
Other art centers might be regional, and they might say from your state and the neighboring states. So that could happen. Okay.
That could happen, and we have selected submissions, and people have shown from way out of town. So.
Okay. Anne Mavor. Hold on, let me unmute you. I like all your guys' questions, and Anne's asking a second. Certain other people here, you can certainly ask your first, or you can type it to me and say, I don't want to talk, and then I'll ask your question, but I like hearing from you. Anne, go ahead.
Okay. Have you ever served as a fiscal agent for artists who want to raise funds for specific art projects?
Yes, we have done that in the past, and would not turn that down in the future. I think sometimes that's the only way to get your grant money in.
Let me explain to those of you who don't know what a fiscal agent is. A fiscal agent is, to put it bluntly, someone who launders money for you. So that if you can say to a collector, you could write a check to the Evanston Art Center for $10,000 and they will get the money to me. Most fiscal agents charge between 7 and 10% for the service. The New York Foundation for the Arts is one example, and I think they've created a new entity it's called Spire that does this. It's some group, it's not Land's End, it's something that sounds like that or makes me think of that. So that if a collector were to write a check to you out of their benevolence, they wouldn't get a deduction for doing that. But if they write it to a not-for-profit, like the Evanston Art Center or the New York Foundation for the Arts, and I'm blanking on the name of these other people, but there's a variety of groups that do this. They can then get the write-off. You get the majority of the money. Some of it goes to the not-for-profit / charity that is assisting you. Everybody comes out ahead. And Nora says that periodically the Evanston Art Center does this. I'm assuming that you do this.
Is it specifically for...
Hold on a second. I'm assuming, Nora, that you do this solely for artists who have a connection or a project with the Evanston Art Center. Is that correct?
Yeah, or a project that we've looked at and that we really think is special, and we're willing to bring it in that way if we don't have the funding ourselves.
But you wouldn't do it for a nice person from Nevada who you just happen to say, well, that's a nice project, but we're not going to do anything with the project, but we could launder their money for them. Would you do that or not?
No, I don't think our auditor would like that.
Okay, fair enough. Anne, you wanted to follow up. Go ahead.
That was my question before.
Oh, I'm psychic. All right, cool. All right, thank you very much. And I don't know whose question to take. That's interesting. A mission statement wouldn't hurt, but I don't know. Can you verbalize your mission statement, Nora?
Yeah, we are here to foster arts appreciation among diverse audiences, and we do it through arts education, particularly classes, exhibitions, interactive activities, and arts engagement.
Okay.
So we are there to teach and foster appreciation of the arts.
Fabulous. Vicky, you can ask your question in any language you want.
Bonsoir, Nora. J'ai voulu savoir si tu aimes des projets communautaires que les artistes te proposent. Do you like community art projects that artists propose?
Yes, we love community art projects. We have a director of education who is very much into relational arts, social activism, and we are very interested in being out in the community to make a difference. So it's something that we're very much involved in.
Merci.
We've got people, and now formidable. This is all good here. Dudley, in English, please. Let me, hold on. Let me get up to Dudley. Dudley, go ahead.
Okay, I actually had an earlier question too, so I'll just ask both of them.
You can ask, go ahead, sure.
I think the first one has kind of been answered. That was about whether you are you prioritizing exhibition proposals that make a connection to the classes that you offer? And then also I'm interested in knowing whether you've been successful in securing funding from national organizations like Arts Place America, for instance, or NEA.
Yeah, we have received an NEA grant. We have a program that is called Sculptures on the Grounds, which is site-specific temporary sculptures out front. And we did receive an NEA grant for that. But we have not Arts in America or Arts Works. We have not received any of those. Our hope is that with new programming and a new building, that we will then be a much more attractive, grantee.
Yeah, I'm on the board at the Center for Maine Contemporary Art, and I know this is one of the problems I face as well.
Yeah.
Trying to get those grants.
Yeah, a lot of that money is dried up, and you know how the shrinking NEA budget, what it looks like.
Yeah, thank you.
And you're welcome. Thank you.
Elisa, look at that. I got it right this time. Go ahead, Elisa.
I'm curious if your Arts on the Ground project is still going. Is it temporary or permanent, and is it open to national artists?
It's been open to national artists. The issue is we don't know what we're going to do going forward with a new building that does not have a front lawn. We may work with the city of Evanston to continue to program out front, and that is my hope. And it's always been international.
Oh, great. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Daniel, go ahead. Daniel, oops, you muted yourself. Hold on, I've unmuted you. Go ahead, Daniel.
No, when I lived in Chicago, I taught and exhibited at the Evanston Art Center a number of times. It was a great space to work with people there.
Great.
I'm curious how the balance would change if you move to a new space between the educational kind of impetus of the space and the exhibition agenda.
Well, our exhibition space. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, the exhibition space that we envision in the new building, which has already been laid out by an architect, is probably a third larger than what we have right now. We have taller ceilings and just more space to show more art. So the exhibition program will continue to be a priority, and it will work in tandem with our education system. Anything you read from research today will reconfirm that early engagement in the arts really is a defining factor in learning and later engagement in the arts. And so we bring all of our classes to the galleries, right, and hope that relationship continues and strengthens.
It was just especially nice because you had some very interesting artists who also were teaching, and
yeah, that
exposure, you know, whether it was, you know, for kids or for, you know, adult education or other resources, a terrific kind of relationship. So.
Yeah, and we want to embrace that and really move that going forward with more interpretive materials, more engagement in the gallery spaces, docent tours. There's just more that we can do. We're just so understaffed right now.
Right. Well, good luck with them.
Thank you so much.
Do you do studio visits, Nora?
Yeah, we do. I do, and our exhibition committee did. I need to do more.
How many do you do? How many do you
probably, within 6 months, I would say 10 to 20.
You know, that's more than most curators at most museums, by a lot.
Yeah, well, I'm out a lot, and I think in Chicago particularly, it's very easy. It's a collaborative community, as you know, very open, lots of artists. My daughter lives in Pilsen, and she connects me every day to somebody new, and it's fabulous.
So the basic message is that artists should get in touch with curators' children.
There you go. That's a strategy.
Interesting. Who else has questions? All right, Olga has a question. Olga, I can't believe you're still awake. This is wonderful. Olga's in Norway. Go ahead.
Awesome.
Go ahead, Olga.
Yeah, hello. About studio visit, how many works are you expecting to see there?
Paul, could you help me with that?
Yeah, when you do a studio visit, how much art do you expect to see? How many works of art do you expect to see in the studio visit?
You know, I think that all depends on what the studio space is like, if they're showing from a portfolio with works on paper, or whether they have, 45-inch paintings. I'd like to look on a laptop if there's not a lot of room to see what else they're working on. Works in progress, drawings, sketches, just to get a sense of what the thinking is, what they're working on, who they're looking at, who their influences are. It's very dependent on the space and the artist and the medium.
Why, Nora? Why do you do studio visits? I mean, what? That wasn't meant to sound negative. Why are you going?
Because it's not sterile. You know, looking at work on a computer and a laptop is so removed from what the piece looks like, the materiality, the color, the true color, the size, the way it works with the space. And to see an artist and be in front of the piece they've made and listen to them talk is invaluable.
Do you do studio visits? I mean, does a studio visit always have something to do with the Evanston Art Center? Or are you doing it just because it might be interesting and informative, and maybe it'll have something to do with the Evanston Art Center later, but we don't have a specific notion in mind at the time?
Paul, I have to have some fun.
Good. Okay, so sometimes you go just because it might be interesting and we don't know, and you don't have an ulterior motive. It might just be interesting and maybe something will happen.
Yeah, and at this point, because I'm not making my own art, I have to see it, I have to touch it, I have to install it. That's my only connection right now.
Okay, cool. Hey, Brandon, I'm going to you because you had such difficulty getting in, and I hope we figure this out going forward. Do you have a question that you want to ask, or have we covered it?
You really kind of covered it, and thank you. I was very glad to finally get to join you all. Yes, I am very interested in studio visits and what people expect, and this has been very informative.
Let me say something about studio.
Oh, I'm glad.
I think you guys should try and have one studio visit a week. And these studio visits can be with other artists where you swap studio visits, with a collector, with a curator, with a museum director. But you should try and get somebody into your studio once a week. And Brandon's going, really? Yes?
No, but I would love that. But there are points when you'd have to really climb over things to do this. But how do you get, I find it's challenging to get people to the studio. I'm not in a large city, so people usually have to travel to get here.
Well, you've got artists coming to your press. I think you should do a studio. They should do some of them should do a studio visit. While you're here, why don't you come over to my studio? I'm assuming that there are other artists in your community, and you should exchange studio visits. I think it's really important to be able to talk about your art with other people, and you never know where good ideas are going to come from. And, frequently by sharing this and being generous and, and growing a relationship, somebody will say, why don't we plan a group show together? Why don't we go do thus and such? I mean, you want to grow your community, and you want people to get excited about your art. And doing, you don't have to serve them a steak lunch. Milk and cookies is plenty, coffee. Something, but a studio visit should happen in each of your studios, and you can reciprocate. And people will be driving through, you'll hear about it, you should ask. I think you can even also do virtual studio visits. Everybody in this course gets a strategy session. I think you can use this software for 2 people for free with Zoom. You can certainly do it with Skype, where you can point your camera around, and people in 2 different parts of the world who are in this course can swap studio visits. You will find a tremendous value just by talking about your stuff.
I totally agree, Paul.
I also agree. I think I sometimes find that I learn things about my own work by talking about it. And sometimes someone will, because of course, once the work is out, then it incurs all kinds of new interpretations. So very often I learn quite a bit from unexpected sources as well.
Totally true.
But please be careful to stay true to your own vision, because there will be some people who will come in and make comments and send out a critique.
More frogs, and
Pardon?
You should paint more frogs. No, you've got to do it. Yeah, do what resonates for you, not for somebody else.
Yeah.
But I think it's a great idea to do these studio visits. I want to go a little long because we had some disruption or stall getting going a little bit. Who else has additional questions? Fire up those questions. People are talking about, larger studio buildings or artist studio buildings where there's open studio nights and all that stuff. Yeah, that can be a mixed blessing, but, frequently you will be showing your art to people who've never seen it before and have never been there, who've happened to, go there for somebody else and see you in the process. I think that's cool. I would really like to hear from people I haven't heard from yet tonight, like Jan, and Sarah has a question. I don't know, Sarah, have we heard from you? I'm going to unmute you. All right, wait a minute. Sarah Stoller, go ahead.
Hi, Nora. Thank you for
speaking. Hi, Sarah.
Hi. I was wondering, when you do studio visits, if you ever encounter artists who
work in many different disciplines, or maybe are working on several different bodies of work, would you prefer that the artist kind of focus on one thing, or do you want to see everything that they do?
You know, just my preference, but I think that people are, most of the people I see are working across disciplines, and they're trying to investigate many problems all at the same time. And they all influence each other, and I'm interested to see how that happens, what that process is like. So no, just for me, I don't need to see one focused body of work, but I'd like to see a wide open investigation.
So the reason I ask is because I've had feedback that it seems like, I can only talk about me, like I'm all over the place, and where I can connect the dots, and so I guess that's why I ask, because do you want an explanation? Do you want to see the common thread that runs across the work?
You know, I think that a common thread is really helpful. And we're not a gallery. I mean, we don't have a stable of artists. We don't have this mission to show a certain type of work or group of artists or figurative versus abstract or what have you. We're wide open. But to have the artists explain to me and show me a thread or a common theme or investigation that they're trying to work toward, I think is important. If it's too random, then I'm not quite sure the artist is at a stage where they know what they want to show or why.
Let me share with you my observation, and that is, I have seen a lot of artists who think their work is all over the place and it's really vastly different. And every time I look at it, I can see what unifies it. I can see a common thread, and I don't think it's anywhere near as diverse as the artist thinks it is. I think you need. I think you need to be true to yourself. I think you need to do what resonates, and I think you do not worry about how consistent you are or you are not. You know, if somebody comes in and perceives that you really are all over the place, maybe you're not as mature as they hoped you would be. But most of you people are. All of you are. And, you know, I see you are so close to it that you see all the nuances and the differences and I don't know, exaggerate them. We look at it and we can see the continuity and the consistency. I do not think this is an issue you should worry about.
Right. I totally agree.
All right, let's see. Sherry hasn't asked a question, and I don't know what it says. She's making a comment, but I want to let her make it. Sherry, you are now unmuted.
Hi there. I was just saying that working in two different medium or in two different directions is kind of like speaking in two different languages, and Nora being multilingual maybe understands that. But still the ideas are coming from the same person. So I think that, you know, especially today, it's valid to be working in more than one direction. And, you know, maybe it should even be encouraged. Maybe there's other things to discover that way.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Somebody asked if artist in residencies or a residency is, I think it was Sam, is a good way to get a gallery to take a look at one's work. And I would say not very often. The gallery people tend to be too self-impressed to do that. Curators, on the other hand, from museums frequently go to residency programs or like to stop in because they were at one or they had a good experience there. You know, like, so Chautauqua, other residencies tend to be places where curators go. That can be a really good thing.
Well, we also have collectors who are students, and we have board members who are collectors. So it's not always the gallery. I mean, there are people buying work who have no interest in going through a gallery.
True. Jan had a good question. Jan, go ahead. I should unmute you. That would help. Jan, your turn. Go ahead.
Well, how do you actually get the gallerists to come to your studio?
I think that's probably a question for me, or do you? Yeah. You know, next week in the second hour, I'm going to do a talk about how to grow a relationship with a gallery. But mostly it's about growing a relationship and saying, would you come by my studio? And most dealers, art gallerists will say, I'm too important, bring 3 pieces here. But some really want to see your space. I can think of William Lieberman and Zola Lieberman Gallery here in Chicago, who would prefer, I think, you know, he says it may take me 2 months to get there, but I'd love to come by and do a studio visit. You know, for him, he's methodical and he wants to get that information and he'll do it. But, you know, you have to grow the relationship to a point where you can ask the question honestly and enable the art dealer to respond honestly. And I think, you know, ultimately, I'll talk about this more next week, you want to create scenarios whereby you're relieving the pressure and not saying, you have to do this, you must come, I'll send a limousine for you. You know, that doesn't cut it. That's too much pressure. But, you know, we'll talk about that further.
Okay, thank you.
Barbara has a question, and it looks like my name is in it, but I'm going to hear what it is first. Barbara Thomason, go ahead.
Oh, no, we were just talking about community shows. And the feeling is the more you're out in the community with your art, the more people become aware of you. It helps the facility, it helps the organization, and it helps you. So that's what they were asking about on the resume.
Okay, yeah, I think that's all true. I think that sometimes context is important. I mean, I think you want to show your art, and there's a lack of clarity on the answer to what I'm saying here. I know some people who feel like showing your art underneath the staircase in the basement of City Hall is a good thing to do. And I know people who say, no, you know, and it's true also for abstract art. You know, abstract art tends to be, you know, judged by the context that's exhibited, how nice the room looks, where a seascape or a landscape or something figurative, you know, that external information doesn't affect one's response to the same extent. So, you know, I think it kind of depends. Vicki, go ahead and ask Nora your question. Go ahead.
Yes, Nora. As somebody who teaches, you've got experience in your career taking over your art, and when you've got a lot of experience seeing artists coming through the doors that are teaching. In general, what would you say for artists as the amount of time they spend teaching courses versus in the studio? Do you see at some point where people would usually burn out?
You know, I think most of our teaching artists are just that. They're practicing artists. And they are trying to cobble together a life like all of us, between being in the studio and making work, showing work, doing all the things you're trying to do, but also trying to earn some part of their income by teaching. And I can tell you, every one of them gets so much back from the students that it helps grow and prosper their own practice. So I don't see them burning out any more than any of us are burnt out just by trying to survive. I think the teaching actually gives them some hope and energy.
Thank you.
You know, I think we all learn stuff from the people. I mean, you know, you guys are, I don't know, my students, but I learn stuff from you, and I think, you know, one does that in teaching. I hope that the teaching doesn't distract from the art making and actually serves the art making. I think that's the priority. Nestor, do you have any questions? You comment a lot. I appreciate the running commentary mostly. Nestor, do you have a question or three? Nestor, you can answer me verbally. I'm waiting and trying not to talk too much. Good luck with that. Do you want to ask anything? Peace out. All right. Thank you. Does anybody else want to ask? I'll just keep you muted. Does anybody else want to ask a question, or we can wrap this up? We have gone over an hour. I think Nora has been really wonderful and shared a lot of information. All right. I think we will wrap this up for this evening. Nora, let me unmute everybody, and then I want to say something after I stop the recording. Everybody's unmuted. Everybody can thank Nora. Nora, thank you.
Thank you, Nora.
Thank you.
Merci beaucoup.
Thanks.
Very informative.
Thank you.